themselves and telling us a bit about their books. And we'll go in the order that we're here. So Joelle, you can start.
Hi. Hello, I'm Joel Hames. I am the writer of number 6 books of crime fiction, and the most recent one is the one you can see a poster of behind me, The Lies I Tell, which was published by Spellbound Publishing back in February. It's a psychological identity theft techno thriller of sorts, techno being the kind of social media element of it. And I have lots of other things to say about myself, but they'll probably come out during the course of this hour, so I won't waste your time by going into them now. I'm move straight on.
Jane?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jane Badrock, and I've written a crime series about a rookie detective called Detective Sergeant Karen Thorpe. I've only got the first book out so far, and that's Comatose. And what I think is hopefully a bit different about it is that the only witness is in a coma, but she's not just entirely in bed, we're with her thoughts. So while Karen is trying to solve the investigation, her side in the real world, Stella in the coma is trying to find her way back to wakefulness. And of course, there are lots of clues and things revealed at her bedside. So I think it's a bit different.
Great.
Good. Andrew, you want to finish us off?
Sure thing. Hi, I'm Andrew, and I write thrillers under my pen name A.L. Frame. And I've got 2 series out, which you can see just behind me here. I've got a trilogy out, which is the DC O'Connell series, and my more recent series, which is the DCI Pilgrim series. And I'm writing book 4 in that right now.
Nice. I'm going to start you off with one of our favourite group. Can't get words out today. I'm going to start you off with one of our favourite group questions, which is, what are your most memorable moments as an author? Do you want to start us off, Andrew?
Putting me on the spot.
First,
Favourite moments as an author.
Yeah, memorable moments as an author. It's a favourite.
I suppose there's been several. I mean, publishing my first ever book was certainly a fairly big moment. You know, hitting publish on KDP. I mean, I'm between my 2 pen names, I'm over 35 books in now. But yeah, that first book was certainly interesting. And then I suppose the other one was a couple of years ago, before pandemic times. I got to go to Vegas to the Writers' Convention, the 20 Books Convention there, and meet lots of people that I have spoken to online but never actually met before that point. And that was amazing. I learned an awful lot and had a great time out there. And I'm looking forward to going back when things get back to normal.
Nice. Jane?
Yeah, I haven't got many author memories because I haven't really been published for very long, but if you cast your mind back to last year, July, when we were sort of coming out of lockdown, but not quite, and it was all very difficult, I wanted to try and make some sort of trailer because I couldn't have a signing event. And it just so happens that not far away from me is a tiger reserve called Paradise Park. So being a bit cheeky, I got in touch with them and said, would it be possible to film something there? And to cut a long story short, they more or less said, yes, can you come tomorrow? Now, I'd actually ordered a tiger print dress from eBay. No, from some designer label, surely. And that came early. So I was all set, except I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Anyway, they took me to this wonderful tiger reserve, and I recorded that. They even filmed me, and I had to do my little spiel, but I couldn't sit anywhere. So I was holding what I was going to say down there and tried to read it, and of course it was windy. And then luckily the tigers came out behind me in the film, so it was absolutely brilliant. So I had no time to think about it or plan or get worried about it. And people seemed to like it, so it was fine. So that was a real experience. A book signing might have been more conventional.
So I like that story. It's a good one. Joel?
Yeah, I have mine's a story which isn't quite such a happy one. It's a story of hubris, of excitement and disappointment. When I published my first book, which is here, about 7 years ago, as a naive self-published author who did that, hitting the publish button on KDP, I thought, I'm going to try a different way of advertising this. I'm going to be very focused. I got sandwich bags in sandwich bars throughout the city of London, had posters on the Docklands Light Railway, had a guy riding around with an ad bike. And for about 3 or 4 days, it was unbelievably exciting to actually be there. I travelled down to London, stayed with family, saw all the stuff in action. And it was really thrilling. And then I saw the sales not dribble through and realised that, frankly, it was the kind of book that would never really sell. It was too niche. So that was a very, very memorable and ultimately disappointing moment, trumped by the much more boring moments of seeing your book in something like a BookBub featured deal email, which happened with one of my books a couple of years ago on the US side and selling thousands of copies in a few hours. That is looks like a really dull moment because all you're doing is hitting refresh. But it's unbelievably exciting in reality.
Yes.
Things that seem fun can just be fun and not actually worth it in the end. And things that seem dull can be brilliant. And that's me.
Great.
We've got lots of people joining us. So Sam is watching. She says hi. So does Donna. TG, who writes in the group as TK Gearing, she says hello. So does Tony Millington, Laura Hamilton, and Fiona Webb and Leslie.
Everybody.
Oh, and Jason are all saying hello to you. So there's quite a lot of people. Sam's starting you off with the hard-hitting questions of what are your beverages of choice tonight?
Passion fruit martini.
I'm going to disappoint. Go on, Jane. Go on.
Mine's a fairly posh carver. It's a Sainsbury's one that's on offer, £9 a bottle. I'm blessed with an indiscriminate palate, so I can drink very cheap stuff.
Nothing special for me. I'm just on the squash.
I've got beer.
In a mug.
Good for you.
In a mug. Well, I'm a teacher, so I'm pretending that I'm not actually drinking. Just in case anyone ever finds my videos.
I think you're allowed to drink a little.
Well, you've just admitted it, so you've messed that up.
Just ruined cred now as someone who wouldn't drink. You're not allowed any kind of social life if you're a teacher. The students just think you go back in your box at the end of the day.
Yeah. They think you live at school, don't they?
Yeah. It really shocks them if they ever see you outside anywhere. Oh, Donna says, Leslie and me, you don't need surnames mentioning. So I think it's because you're on the stream often, Donna and Leslie. I just presumed everyone knew who you were. I'm scrolling back up to things. Sam said, how do you all start a new project? Is it when an idea strikes you, or do you have a process?
I don't mind going with this one to start. An idea strikes me, and then I really strike while the iron's hot. I sit down and I spend 3 months plotting out a really painfully, awkwardly detailed skeleton, which is usually, I know I can see the expression on your face, you're absolutely right. I've tried not doing it and it doesn't work for me, unfortunately, but I'll write something that's maybe 30 or 40, maybe even 50 pages long and is just the summary of the novel. Once you've done that, it's fairly equal.
Wow.
But once I've done that, I can sit down and write. As you can imagine, I've written a fifth of the book already. Basically, it's very, very easy to sit down and write the book. But in terms of the idea happening and me just starting to write, I'd love to be able to do that. The idea happens and I start to plot, but I spend an inordinate amount of time plotting. Everyone has a different way. That's mine.
Jane?
Yeah, I'm completely random. Anything and everything can spark me off. And I don't necessarily execute the idea straight away. So some of them stew. Like I've got a great one, a really silly one that I won't talk about now in case I actually don't do anything about it. But another one, I came up with the title, no idea where it came from, The Suicide of Charlotte Dovedale. And the title was just swimming around in my head for ages and ages and ages. And then I just sat down and wrote it. Vomit draft, 80,000 words, got the whole story out. So I'm a pantser. I'm terrible.
God, I'm jealous of that. I'm so jealous of that.
I have a vague idea of where I'm going. I sometimes have an ending, I sometimes don't, or sometimes you know what the ending's logically got to be, like with Comatose. You know she's going to wake up in the end, probably. But it's the journey, how you get there. And with this one, I did actually get myself, and I had to do a lot of not plotting, I won't call it plotting. There was a lot of family tree invention involved. And because it was all through a line of girls in the days when women automatically took the husband's surname, that meant you had to really work out. So I got the Excel spreadsheets out, and I had to a lot of that sort of work just to try and make sure I was getting everything right. But other than that, I can just write absolutely nothing. Pile of stones in the back garden, 80,000 word novel. It might be shit. But, sorry to be angry. But
It's a good thing you're not a teacher.
Oh God, I could have been a teacher. Sorry, I respect now. I can do it.
Well, for me, I come up with ideas all the time. You know, and I usually write them down and make note of them, or just mull them over for a long time. But I don't necessarily jump straight in. I'm a plotter like Joel, and I will, before I start a book, I will plot it out and write roughly a paragraph or two per chapter, because I need to know where it's going, where the reveals are, where the twists are, that kind of thing. So that's my process, and then I start writing. But I often have ideas on the back burner for weeks or months before I actually get round to writing them. So it's not something I jump straight into. So.
That's much more familiar. That sounds closer to my way of doing it. I've got to be honest, I have ideas. I have things in my notes folder here going back years. There's 30 or 40 ideas for books. I'm sure we've all got the same. We'll get to one day.
So many ideas. Yeah, crazy amount of ideas.
Crap, most of them.
Oh, we're all swearing now. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
That's because I'm drinking a funky passion fruit martini. You see, it's the orange squash that's stopping you from.
My badminton is getting really rude now. We're going to have a swear box. Sorry, that's not really relevant.
You're going to have to put a warning on this one, Caroline.
Yeah, parental warning. It's okay. They're all marked as not for kids anyway on YouTube. So Leslie said she joined late and just missed seeing who everyone was. So do you just want to give us another quick recap of yourselves?
That's me.
That's an easy one I could do.
That's easy, see?
That's me. Ooh. Right.
That's me.
Yeah, all right, you've got the big one.
I've got to ask you T's question now that's come up, because I think it's brilliant. T has said, have you all got favourite clothes that you prefer to wear when writing?
Ha!
I don't know where she got that question from.
Like lucky, like
lucky pants.
Yeah, like lucky underwear or something. Is that?
I generally prefer to wear clothes, but what? No, I'm a terrible slob. This I threw on because it's quite pretty, but it's ancient. I think it's new look from about 20 years ago or something. No, just being comfortable, really. Sorry. Boring,
no. Well, yeah, I'm the same. No special clothing.
I really want to make something up for this, but my wit has been dulled by this passion fruit martini, and I can't get.
You need to come up with something really weird, like a beanie that you wear or something. Like that.
I wanted one of you to be like, well, I can only write when I've got my lucky like pink and green socks on. Or
Sorry,
we've let you down. No one's going to watch this now.
you swear some more. That's it. Swear some more.
I have to start telling you off. Who have got? Agneska. Sorry, Agneska. I probably ruined your name. Says, hello all. How did you find lockdown? Did you write more because of the extra free time, or were you struggling for inspiration?
I wrote as much as I normally do. Because I suppose you could call me full time between doing covers for other authors and doing my own writing. But in some ways, it was probably a little harder because the kids were home at lockdown, and so they had that. But as generally speaking, no, I didn't write more or less. I tried to avoid the news, though. I tried to avoid the news, getting bogged down in things when it first kicked off, and just focus on my writing.
Yeah, my life is pretty boring anyway. I'm at home most of the time now. I'm more or less retired from full-time work. I'm hearing a strange sort of sound on. Can you hear me all right? Because I've got some sort of back sound going on. Anyway, I'll carry on.
Just talk. Just continue.
I can hear you. I can hear it as well, but I can hear you too.
Oh, okay.
So.
When you finish speaking, maybe try muting yourself, and then maybe that'll have a go once you've finished talking.
You're just trying to get rid of me, aren't you?
No.
And then unmute yourself.
Yes, and then unmute.
I don't even know where the mute button is. Or where is it?
It's on
in your little screen box
picture at the bottom. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, sorry.
Right. Yeah. So most of my days, writing or doing the garden or being out in the paddocks and sorting things out. So it didn't really change a great deal. It changed when my husband was born, because then he was around a lot more, and that was a bit irritating. But no, I wasn't particularly more productive, less productive. I think I got more miserable. So sorry, I'll try and do this thing because it's fucking. So I just. Oh, what do I do?
Oh, no,
Mute.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is better. Or is it? I don't know. It might be what happened to me now as well. On the first lockdown, my youngest, well, both my kids were homeschooling, but my youngest needed me to homeschool her for pretty much the whole period. So whilst that was a fascinating experience, and I won't say any more than that with the teacher present and her in the next room, it did mean that I couldn't write nearly as much as I usually do. But after the first lockdown, when school provision of homeschooling certainly improved and kids were back at school for various times and then not, my writing stepped up massively, and I more than made up what I hadn't done. And I also started doing quite a lot of editing for other authors as well. So I would say, first few months not productive at all, subsequently more productive than I've ever been. So, that bodes well, doesn't it?
Speaking as a teacher, I am very unproductive working from home. Just
goes without saying.
I'm either super productive working from home or very unproductive. There's not a happy medium.
No, well, it must be very full on in the classroom. So when you get back, it's a relief to have change. Whereas I suppose that even when I was working, I would work on the computer at home, doing work, just to try and catch up with budgets and spreadsheets and things. So it doesn't really matter. Yes, always going in this horde of horrible children. I'm sure that would be. I'd want to do nothing while I get home after that.
I don't know. I feel like lockdown made people appreciate teachers more.
Oh yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes. A couple of people have commented on the feedback but said they can hear you all really clearly.
Good.
Sam said, has somebody got Facebook open too? Because you might be echoing. That could be the problem.
Oh, heck, probably.
Entirely possible.
No, that's what I turned off. Prevent exactly this kind of thing happening.
Laura Hamilton has gone back to the favourite writing clothes, and she said maybe get a unicorn onesie or other Stitch creature.
Right.
If you're in the market for writing clothes, that's a good suggestion. Sam wants to know if any of you have ever acted out a scene to make sure it works.
Oh, gotcha. I read them out loud quite often, and I sometimes get my wife to help out. I've absolutely done that. Yeah, no question. Especially when it comes to dialogue. Yeah, I mean, and in terms of physical action as well, I'll often go, she stood and walked to the door, right? Does that, did she do it that way or that way? I'll try and come up, with I'll actually do it and then try and describe it. But when it comes to dialogue, if it's something that's particularly crucial and particularly tense or particularly, at a hard-hitting emotional moment, then I will definitely act it out, because it's got to sound right. Especially because, with all of us as well, more and more we're getting our books out in audiobook. And hoping for that elusive TV or film deal. So the dialogue has to not just look right on the page; it has to sound right as well.
I think I was talking to someone like Anne Coates recently, and she said that she once sat writing with a knife held to her throat.
Oh,
She
I haven't gone that far.
I would like correct you about this. I'm fairly sure it was Anne Coates who said, because she's such a sweet lady, and you wouldn't imagine like this to come out of her mouth when you're talking to her. And we were both really shocked. This may be why Sam asked that question. Might still be in our minds because she said that she'd done that while she was writing. Jane, have you ever acted out a scene to make sure it works?
No, but what I did find was when I had to read an excerpt from Sinister Sisterhood at the Tiger Park, even though I thought I'd practiced it, I don't think I did it very well. Other people said it was all right, but I think it's something I probably should have and should have listened back to. So maybe I should do it. I talk to myself all the time anyway, so maybe I should do it out loud.
No, I don't tend to act scenes out. I'll go through them over and over, thinking about the dialogue, that kind of thing, just reading it through. I tend to get a good sense just by reading it, whether it flows to me. But I have, if I'm thinking of a scene and maybe some action and things like that, I have got up out of the seat and thought, well, would it work that way? Would it work that? I've done that kind of thing.
Okay, sorry, Jane, I'm just going to, don't take this wrong way, drop you back out of the stream for a minute, off to one side, and drop you back in to see if that helps.
Yeah, because I could hear it on other people's actually, but yeah, try it.
I think it's a general issue on the stream.
Oh,
yeah, it's not one person. Yeah,
No,
it's not just Jane. I can still hear it.
Lena's coming back
not
now.
one person.
There we go. Look, shit, there she is. She didn't go.
It wasn't just you. We've established it wasn't just you.
It's normally me, so I'm used to it.
Right. So yeah, it was Anne Coates apparently, and Kelly said instead of method acting, it's method writing. Agnestia says, "What do you think about books being translated? Would you worry about your books losing some subtleties in a different language? Have any of you got your books translated?"
I haven't.
No.
I've been approached by sorry.
Go on, Joel. Go.
So I've been approached by an Italian company, and I thought they were a scam outfit. This was going back 5, 6, 7 years ago. So I kind of ignored it, and it turned out I was wrong. They weren't, they were reputable, but not big or anything like that. And they wanted to translate one of my books. I wouldn't be worried about it. I would simply have to trust the person. They wouldn't want to translate it if they didn't get it in the first place. It would be my view, I suppose.
Yeah, it would be. I've not had one translated yet, but I know people who have, and it's just you just got to find someone you trust to do it, and it's in their benefit to do a good job usually. So.
Yeah, I find it hard enough sometimes with American readers. I had a beta reader. The first line of one of the first lines of one of the book I'm bringing up next is tucking into Marmite, and she thought that was some sort of sexual term.
I'm now worried that it might be.
Some things. And it was hysterical because when you're just emailing someone that you've never met in real life, just doing a beta swap. It was really quite funny, and she just couldn't get past the first page because of that. And then we're actually quite good friends now, but it always makes me laugh.
Yeah.
So God knows if some of my books were translated in another language, God knows what would come out.
I mean, and how would you know if your book had been translated well?
Yeah.
Unless you read fluent.
I think you're right. It's just about trust, really. And again, hoping that they wouldn't have wanted to translate it and get it translated if they didn't get the voice and the subtleties in the first place.
So my favorite author chat question, I will go back to the ones on the stream, but my favorite author chat question to ask is, would you make a graphic novel of one of your books?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, go on, Jane.
Sinister Sisterhood. I don't know that anyone's read it. Probably not any of you read it. That is almost cartoon. The cover is a cartoon sort of cover, which I don't think helped the book. but the characters are a little bit larger than life, and I can actually see them being, in some sort of graphic style. But whether it will ever happen, I doubt.
I would. Not sure I'd do one of my crime novels. I'd probably do one of my sci-fi stuff under my pen name, but I would do a graphic novel or a comic. Yeah.
I'd love it. I mean, my artistic skill is 0, so it would have to be done by someone else entirely. But yeah, my Sam Williams series, I could just see them getting the Alan Moore treatment. Yeah, I'd love that kind of thing. It'd be great. I have a huge amount of respect and time for the genre, and it's not something that I was into until a few years ago. I was a bit snobbish about it, frankly, and then stumbled across some great graphic novels.
There are some amazing ones.
Yeah, completely opened my eyes. So yeah, I'd be delighted. I think I'm not sure how suitable my books would be, but I'd be very willing to give it a go.
There's a whole range out there, though. I mean, I like reading them. It's why it's one of my favorite questions.
Yeah. It's I've read plenty of graphic novels and comics in my time, so yeah, be good.
And then we've got a question from Philip Jordan, who is an author as well. He said, "Did reading any particular author inspire you to write yourself?"
Yeah, I always wanted to write, and as I mentioned at the beginning, the first book I wrote was this very niche thing, which we won't talk about. But after that, I was frankly, I'll admit it here, I was a bit of a literary snob. And it wasn't until I read a lot of Kate Atkinson that I realised that you could write really, truly fantastic crime fiction. And I loved reading crime fiction. But I didn't think I'd want to write it, and it was at that point I think, I can do this, and I can aspire to writing something like that. So I would say it was the first couple of Kate Atkinson, Jackson Brodie novels, Case Histories, One Good Turn, and what's the third one called? I've forgotten. It will come to me. Those certainly inspired me to write crime fiction.
For me, I suppose I could say a couple of things. I mean, because when I started writing, it was more kind of urban fantasy, kind of science fiction fantasy type stuff, and like the Harry Dresden books kind of were one of the things that inspired me to write in that genre. But when it came to thrillers, it wasn't a book that inspired me, it was a TV series. It was True Detective, the first season. I watched that and I loved it so much, and I thought I really want to write something like that. And that's what made me want to write thrillers.
Yeah, I don't know what made me want to write at all, really. It wasn't ever one of my ambitions when I was younger. It was actually when we moved to this house, we were quite isolated. And when I wasn't working, I was literally out sort of planting or chopping down trees or generally getting into mischief. And my only company was Twitter. So I started engaging on Twitter and writing silly poems and things, but I couldn't fit them on Twitter because it was only 14 characters or whatever it was in those days. And then I joined Google Plus, where you could suddenly write lots of things. So I started writing silly little stories and poems and all sorts of things. Then I discovered NaNoWriMo, and then I thought, can I do 50,000 words? Let's have a go, and I did. So it was sort of, and I was inspired by the encouragement of other people, because people were daft enough to tell me, oh, we think you're quite a good writer, or you could be quite a good writer if you try very hard. And I sort of went from there. In terms of authors I've read, I mean, the guy that knocked me sideways was Anthony Burgess, Nurse's Powers, for a book that I couldn't ever aspire to write anything like that. So I can't say an author's ever inspired me, but I have been, bowled over by writing, if that makes sense.
So obviously, I presume as authors, you're also readers.
Yep.
And I like to ask, who are your shut up and take my money authors? The ones who you'll just buy? Do you know what, like the ones that you don't need to I interviewed Sid Moore last week. She is one of my shut up and take my money authors. If there's a book with her name on it, it is in my bag the minute I see it. Who are on your list? I've got too many. I could just name loads. Like,
Yeah, there are going to be hundreds. Mick Herron at the moment, for sure. You know, the moment that a new Slough House book comes out or is on pre-order, that's there. Susie Lyons, anything she writes, I'll snap up quick as I can. There are dozens. Kate Atkinson.
For me, I mean, my tastes when it comes to reading are, I mean, I read thrillers, but it's probably not my main taste. I'm getting a lot of feedback there.
Yeah.
And so I tend to read kind of more sci-fi type things. And Peter F. Hamilton is one of them. I generally pick up most things he puts out. Yeah.
I'm afraid I can't read much anymore. I don't know what it is, but since I started writing more seriously, I find it impossible to read without trying to rewrite everything the way I would do it or go into edit mode. I'm trying to read a lot of classics, especially because I'm writing a ghost story, or I've done the first draft of a ghost story to try and get the mood right. But I find it incredibly hard to read. I'm very happy to beta read other people's books because I can often spot things that they might not look for, or can help with plot holes and things. But to actually read for enjoyment, there are very, very few authors that I can actually pick up and read and know I'm going to enjoy now. And that's not their fault. That's just me. I mean, the old days, anything by Reginald Hill, I would devour instantly. But I haven't even picked up any of his recently. I don't know what it is. I just can't. I can't seem to. My brain is all arse about face or something. I don't know. I can't do both.
I can kind of sympathise with that to a certain point, but mainly because I don't have as much time as I used to have to read, and so I have to force myself to find time to sit and read. And I'll also, what you also mentioned there, if I'm going to be writing something in a particular genre or something like that, I will often pick up a book that's within that genre to get my head in that space. So
I try not to do that for exactly the reason that I'm too, I have a very weak personality. I'm too easily influenced by what I'm reading. So if, for instance, if I sit and read a Mick Herron book, I mean, that's, spy fiction, so it's not really what I write, but it's definitely, thriller, crime, and an element of that. I can't really read them while I'm writing because the next couple of chapters that I write will be in his style, or certainly my approximation of his style, which is not as good as his style. Also, it's not my style, and that's problematic. So, I'll try to read. At the moment, I'm reading Heidi Goody and Ian Grant's comedy books. I'm reading Hilary Mantel, the last one of the Cromwell series, and I'm listening to an audio book about a bunch of commandos during the Second World War, which is not my usual thing. But I will try and read and listen to stuff that is absolutely not what I'm writing while I'm writing. And then when I'm not writing, when I'm just thinking, plotting, or editing, or whatever, I'll devour some crime fiction.
I have the Hilary Mantel book to read, but I don't know if I can.
I love. It's. I'm on the Mirror and the Light at the moment. It's been sitting there, kind of staring aggressively at me since I got it in hardback when it came out last year. In a very, very making me feel very guilty, basically, that I haven't read it yet, because I absolutely love the first two. And so yeah, now I've given into its temptations, and it's brilliant. They are great books.
Kelly has asked, Kelly Clayton, she said, "Hi Andrew. She had the pleasure of listening to you talk at 20 Books London a couple of years ago. Very entertaining and informative. May I ask how you split your time between writing and designing covers for others, and do you design your own covers?"
Okay. Well, I'm not sure if I met you, but hello, Kelly. Yeah, so I do split my time. basically I write in the morning, so I get up, I get into the office, and I write until till lunch, and then in the afternoons I spend that doing covers if I've got some client work going on. So for those that don't know, I do cover work for various authors, including some you may know: J.D. Kirk, David Gatwood, Alex Smith, as to name some thriller authors. So that's usually because most of my clients are American, and so by the afternoon they've woken up and they start messaging me, and then I can get on with the work for them. And I'll often do a bit of writing in the evenings as well, just to catch up. And yes, I do my own covers as well, because why not?
Mad not to, yeah.
Well, if you design other people's, what about you two? Do you design your own covers, or does someone do them for you?
Oh no, I can't design my own covers. I have absolutely no visual eye whatsoever. I can, I know what I like, but I certainly couldn't come up with it myself. No.
I ought to be able to, because I have got quite a good eye, but unfortunately I can't master the technology to do it. So all my stuff looks like absolute shite. Sorry. Well, I have no. They were.
Swear jar.
I just do sort of mock-ups, and then I hand them over to someone who knows what she's doing, and they generally come out well. So the two she's done so far have been brilliant, so I'm very happy with that.
So do you both commission people to do your covers?
I am well.
Business.
or does your publisher handle that? Or do you handle it, or does your publisher handle it?
Spellbound did this one, and I loved it. Very happy with that. In the past, I have commissioned, and I've also got an arrangement with a guy I edit for. As you know, a lot of us authors are also either editors or cover designers, and I'm in 20 books. There are a lot of communities like this where you can find other people to exchange services with and become friends with, and it's very helpful to be able to find someone who you trust to do decent covers for you, and they trust you to edit their books. So I suppose the short answer is yes, I am commissioning someone, but it's on in exchange for services.
Good way of doing it.
Very good way of doing it. Yeah.
Jane, do you design? Oh no, we already asked that.
Yeah.
I got distracted by the fact that it just started raining really loudly from the window behind me.
I need more wine, but I don't think.
More wine.
Joel has a question for you. He says, someone says, have we seen the last of Sam Williams? It just comes up as Facebook user, so I'm trying to see who's written it.
Well, Facebook user. I don't have another specific Sam Williams novel planned, but as I was saying earlier, offline with these guys, I've got, that's what we're doing actually. I've got hundreds of notes on my phone, and that includes ideas for potential Sam Williams. But I ended the last one on what I thought at the time would be, a close. Everyone's, if not happy, less miserable than they were, which I think for a crime fiction is about as good as you can get. And I had planned to leave it there, but I do have people getting in touch, usually on Facebook and Twitter, saying, can we have another Sam Williams book? And I would quite like to bring the character back eventually. I just haven't decided precisely how.
So introduce us all to your sort of main character at the moment that you're writing about.
Is that for me or all of us?
Yeah, all of you. Tell us all something a little bit about your current main characters.
Okay, I'll go. My current thriller main character is John Pilgrim. He's a DCI, and I based a little bit of his situation on my situation. I'm originally from Nottinghamshire, and I moved down for a job and met the wife and settled. So I basically liked the idea of that kind of fish out of water thing. And so he's from police up in the city of Nottingham, and he gets invited down to Surrey to join a unit and it's about him kind of experiencing the differences between the North and the South, and that whole kind of thing. Things that I can relate to are that the details and the way just little things are different, and I quite like playing with that. And so there's plenty of banter between him and the Surrey officers, as they kind of rib each other about who they are and where they're from and what they're doing. So it's good fun to write.
Jane?
Well, the book that I'm bringing out hopefully next month is about a 20-year-old maths student who starts to experience odd dreams, and the dreams seem to be related to things that might have happened in real life. And without giving away any spoilers, very early on her mother dies, and when she has to deal with her mother's death, she discovers that she's not really who she thought she was. So she's very young, and she's suddenly thrown into complete chaos. Her father was long gone, so first of all she has to try and find him, just so she can start finding out who she is, why she's where she is, and how she gets on with doing her dissertation, because it's just in her final year at university, and she wants to complete it. And my daughter was a maths student and got her first, and so I've actually used the title of her dissertation in the story.
And Joelle, and while you're there, you also
sorry about the dog.
introduce us to your friend.
No, you're not. Everyone has to bring a pet in.
She was growling outside the door.
Oh, okay.
This is Lolly. She's a spaniel. She's a Springer Spaniel. They're very stupid. My main character from The Lies I Tell is, well, she has many names, because you get to know her as Lisa, but she's an identity thief. She has probably a dozen names during the course of the book, which is why handily there is actually one of those list of her identities little pages right before the book starts, so you don't get lost. She comes from an abusive childhood in the North. She travels around the country, ends up in London, goes through a number of life-changing events, and becomes a very skilled criminal. And eventually her past catches up with her, which is what the novel is about, as these things always are. So I would say that I have very, very little, if not nothing, in common with her. I mean, the closest thing is that me and my wife were victims of identity fraud about 7 or 8 years ago. So I suppose there's part of the idea came from that. But I certainly don't have anything in common with her. That's my most recent character.
And you have stolen the show, or Lolly has.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, she's probably a better writer than me as well, but don't let it go to her head.
Sam wants to know what the last scene you all wrote was. No spoilers, she says. This is where you can do it's like the close. You can
Okay,
yeah.
I was going to say, a character opening the front door to someone he thinks is his girlfriend but isn't, and getting shot in the head.
Oh.
Yeah, and I love writing that. I absolutely. It's basically the entire chapter takes place over the course of about half a second between the knock on the door and him opening it, and his thoughts, and a number of other characters around the village and what's going on there. And you're building up to the fact that you, the reader, know that it's not his girlfriend. You don't know what's going to happen, but you know it's not her. And there's a whole chapter, and half a second later, he opens the door and the bullet rips through his head. It was fun.
Oh, well, I don't think I can beat that.
I can't beat that. The last thing I've been doing is getting my book, another book, Scottified, because I've got a lot of the action taking place in Edinburgh. And although I had a Glaswegian uncle, and so I hear a fair amount of the voice in my head, it's not enough. And I've got grades of Scottish that I need, the detective who's lived in London and therefore is quite soft, and the much broader ones. And so I've had I've been going through that. So rather than writing scenes, I've been putting them into Scottish. No, that's terrible.
Fair enough.
He's watching. Who I named my monster after.
I suppose the only thing I can say is that the last chapter I wrote, the characters discover something that was hidden. That's probably all I can really say, because it's towards the end of the book and I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, well, Tom did say no spoilers
Absolutely.
when she asked it, didn't she? Agnieszka asked, what's the most unusual, weird / fun thing you researched before writing?
The effects of various drugs on people to find out something that would knock someone out. I've done a lot of research on that at one point.
Mine, and I still haven't really got an answer, is how many light aircraft are detected flying across the channel, and how can you detect them? And I've had lots of information about it, but no one who can categorically say whether or not every aircraft, because you're meant to check in if you're a pilot, and if you don't check in and you're flying below any sort of radar that would catch a military aircraft or anything, it's probably entirely possible that you can fly more or less where you want and never be found. And you could break lockdown and all sorts of things. It's great potential. I'd probably need to research it a lot more before basing a novel on it, but I found that quite interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I've got a double whammy on this, because I've just seen a question come up, which actually I would answer the same thing for what I'm answering now. Samantha saying, what internet search have you done that worries you the most if someone spots it? And it is also the most interesting one I've done, which is the number of possible ways to break out of a prison. In fact, more precise, organize a prison riot while you're not there and manage to secrete someone out while you're doing that. I obviously didn't get a clear answer on it, because if you could get a clear answer on it, then I would really worry about the state of the world's security. But I got a lot of ideas, I'll say.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I once bought the ingredients, or one of the ingredients, of gunpowder and some fuse wire, and then figured that I might be on a
list somewhere. Yeah.
On a list.
But I figured they'll eventually work out I'm just a teacher, so it'll be fine. So what internet search you've done worries you the most if somebody spots it? Is what Sam had asked. Have you?
Sorry. What was that one?
I'm definitely on some lists. Thanks,
yes.
Well, I can't hear that one. Sorry. What?
Sam had asked what internet search you've done that worries you the most if somebody spots it, and then she said that I'm definitely on some lists. So that's charming.
I've already answered that one, so I'm moving on.
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing. Just the usual.
Yeah, I've been referred to suicide helplines and things like that.
Oh dear!
You're writing a book with that title, yes, I can imagine.
I mean, the usual things like how quickly do bodies decay and what happens in different places. The usual stuff that crime writers have to.
We all know how to dispose of bodies, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't know how to
quite
dispose
normal.
Of bodies. You've got no business being a crime writer, to be honest.
Jane, I have a brother who flies he flies big aircraft now, but he used to fly light ones. He might be able to help. It's got to be something.
I've actually got a nephew-in-law who's a pilot, so I have actually interrogated him on it, and I've gone to a couple of other organisations, and no one will quite answer it. So I think the answer is it must be possible.
It's probably yes, isn't it?
How would you find them?
You probably can't.
You probably can't. So it could be, damn, I'm just giving away a really good plot twist.
T wants to know if you could write anywhere in the world, where would you choose?
What? As in where I'm sitting writing, or write about a place?
Let's go both.
Okay.
I'm up here. I just got this new room. It used to be my husband's office when he was still working, and it's not huge, but I just absolutely love it. I've got a nice big desk, big screen, and I can listen to the birdies singing at night out the window, and I love it. So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
I
Would
used
you
to have an
write
idea.
something
sorry.
set anywhere else in the world?
Sorry.
Sorry, was that
Karen?
me?
Would you write something set anywhere else in the world?
Oh yeah. Oh God, yeah. Sinister Sisterhood went all around the world, and that's really strained my geography. I am rubbish at geography. I had to work out shipping routes and all sorts of things, and also illegal trading routes for animal parts and things like that. So yes, and I've been
Just to say, that's the search that will get you into the most trouble because it's fairly realistic, to be honest.
Well, I have also actually been to China, which was really nice. I've seen bits of it as well. Funnily enough, this is one of those events, isn't it? We went to a wet market in Wuhan. Also, it wasn't a wet market. Just before, I know, it wasn't really a wet market, but they had to have a few sort of live things. But it was mainly sort of in buckets rather than. There was a cat there, and it was very much alive. But yeah, it was in Wuhan, and it was in February 19. Just before the all started. So it's probably my fault.
Did you, by any chance, leave an idea behind? You dropped an idea about a virus. I'm just planning.
I'm happiest writing in my office. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But I'll write about anywhere, and I enjoy looking, at kind of Google Street View in cities, and figuring out layouts of places or looking places up and seeing what they look like and imagining what places might be like and things like that. So
Nice.
I used to have an aim. I wouldn't guess for us to say a fantasy that I would nip off to a lighthouse for a few months and get the privacy I needed to, really write uninterrupted. And I thought, God, that would be boring. I'd drive myself insane. So no, actually, like everyone else, I'd probably rather write here. And I'm sure there are a number of beautiful locations that I could spend, a few weeks in writing. But this is a decent enough place to write in. I'm happy with that. And like the others, I'm happy to write about anywhere. My most recent books have ranged over the UK, but before that, I've written books that are around the world, done a bit of research, and also made up entire countries, which is fun. Yeah, anywhere and anything.
Sam agrees with you. She says there's a slight lighthouse obsession would be a great place to write.
It would, Sam, but I don't know how long I'd be able to cope with it. I think it sounds great in theory,
yeah.
But when someone picked me up 3 months later and cut away all the facial hair, I don't know what kind of creature they'd find behind it.
Surely after the lockdowns, we all kind of know a little bit more about what that kind of creature would be.
Maybe that's true. Sorry, I'm saying it's a lighthouse without Zoom.
Yes. without the internet, without the TV, without just you and your computer.
It's research. There's no communication with the outside world other than research. Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. Is there an expert that you would like to be in contact with that you haven't met yet?
Ooh.
I don't know. I mean, I tend to need police officers as my experts, and I do have a number of them who are friends or acquaintances who I can chat to. So plenty of people I'd like to meet, but none of them for particularly picking their brains for research reasons.
Yeah, no one springs to mind at this point, but I mean, it tends to be when a story point comes up and it's like, I need to know that. If I just knew somebody who could just answer the question, but nothing springs to mind at the moment.
Yeah, I probably would like to speak to a paranormal expert from time to time, just to research some real experiences and find out, to what extent they really do think things go bump in the night, all the rest of it. The trouble is, I think that enough people have enough experiences to know that there are things that we can't explain. They probably are explicable, but our little heads can't get round them. Or, I mean, when we first moved to this house, the builders who were working on it thought it was haunted. And that was partly because with the big floodlights they were using, you get strange shadows everywhere, or there'd be noises because it's very creaky. I mean, it's still at night, so somebody going bang over our heads. Oh, what the hell's that? And we get scratching and think, oh God, it's Linda Blair and The Exorcist. you know that there's all the, there's a squirrel that's got in between the floorboards or something like that. But yeah, I'd be interested, or maybe I'd be too scared to find out. I'd like to know a little bit more about some of that, especially for the ghost story that I'm writing.
I'd like to see the squirrel's head rotate 360 degrees.
I was thinking that.
Cool picture that, can't we?
You can't. Cats can go 180 degrees.
We do have a list of people in the group. There's like a file in the files section.
Research folder. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a helpful people file.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
People with random expertise that you can ask.
Oh, I shall check that out.
Yeah, me too.
Not re-updating, to be fair, but it's been a while. We've grown a lot since, but there are some helpful people in there.
It might be worth doing another kind of, maybe do a post about it and just ask for people.
I'll remind everyone of it, actually.
Yeah.
I do have the Bible for exorcism and possession, which I need to reread, and that does actually give a narrative account of a possessed girl whose head did turn 360 degrees. And it was that point that I stopped reading because that freaked me out far too much. But it's written by a Victorian gentleman, I think, and it's written in such understated tones. It just feels so authentic. So it's absolutely bloody chilling to read it. But I have got that as very, very good research. It was the one that William Peter Blatty plundered for The Exorcist. But he says that it was about Douglas Dean, who was a boy who was possessed and had slightly different experiences. That was probably Poltergeist. But that account is actually in that book. Or at least I thought it was. I haven't read it. Maybe I should read it again. Maybe I imagined it all. It was a long time ago.
You've been asked if your books are available as audiobooks.
Not mine, no.
Yes. My Sam Williams books are all available as audiobooks,
my O'Connell trilogy is all done, and in fact the prequel has just been released. My Pilgrim stuff, book 1 is done and out. Book 2 is done and is probably coming out any time. Book 3, if it's not out already, book 3 has been done. I just need to listen through it, and I'll give him book 4 to the narrator when that's done.
Can people buy signed copies of your books from you?
Yes. I'd have to work out the logistics, but absolutely yes. I've got no problem with that.
Yes, it's something I could do. Again, it's logistics, just figuring that out. But yeah.
Jane?
Yeah. If someone wanted to have a signed copy of my book, I'd be happy to do that. Yeah, they contact me.
Actually, now bookshops are open. My local bookshop stocks my books, and I do sell signed copies from there. So if anyone is interested, I can probably get them signed copies, but it might actually be easier for me to put them in touch with that bookshop because they know how to, distribute books to people better than I do, which is just, going to the post office and figuring it all out like everyone else does.
Excellent. Do you want to? We've got 2 minutes left, so let's have another recap of you guys and your books. We'll start with
reverse order.
Go on, you go.
Okay, fine. Reverse order, fine. So yeah, I'm Andrew. I write under A.L. Frame, and my current series, I'll just get the books so you can actually see them, is that book 4 will be out in a few weeks. So it's the DCI Pilgrim series, and I'm having a lot of fun writing them, and I hope you like them. And if you do, leave a review. That would be lovely.
Oh, please, yes. Right, this was my first published book by Bad Press Inc. And it's about a team of women who take on trophy hunters and animal exploitation, but it's a black comedy, so it's quite funny. And if you look at some of the reviews, they are quite funny with the reviews as well. And the crime story is this one, which I've already talked about, Comatose, and that is our other heroine, Stella, in her coma in her yellow Porsche after it's just crashed.
I am, and was Joel Haynes. This is the book, The Lies I Tell, that is my most recently published one. It is, I should probably mention, it is as of about an hour ago on promotion for a book club deal, so it's down to 99p at the moment. It's a psychological thriller dealing with identity theft and traumatic pasts.
Sounds excellent. And I'm going to finish us off with this quote from Sam. She says, "This has been a great interview. So funny and interesting. You lot can come again."
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anytime, yeah.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
And you'll
good
all be
fun.
there if you come again, so she can deal with you all swearing and drinking on camera.
Some of us aren't drinking enough because they ran out and they're on the bar. Pledged the glass. Next time I'll keep the bottle here in the cooler.
Yeah. Let's go for a red, and then you don't have to worry about the colour.
Oh yeah, anytime. Yeah. Just tip it in. I don't care. I'll drink anything on a
So
Thursday.
thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you
Thank you
for having
very
me.
much. It was
Thank
a
you very
pleasure.
much.